Good evening, all. So today we will be talking about Selenium-based framework, and some of the examples we'll go through, which are included in the repository itself. And I'll also showcase how to navigate a GitHub repository, an open source repository, and how do you execute examples from there. How do you look into that repository and look for some of the framework elements that are already there. So it will give you a base to start with. Uh, and also we'll talk about talks and also how do you set that up in a CI/CD environment. I Once I talk about talks, I'm not sure I will get a feedback from you guys if you again want to jump in into the Jenkins uh, instance and want to create something there, it's going to be the same way as we did for Tavern. Uh, the way that we do uh, execution implementation is via talks, right? So irrespective of the libraries that we are using, uh, the the CI/CD pipeline will still remain the same implementation that we use for Tavern framework. Uh, if some of you guys are new, so I'll get a feedback from you if you've gone through the videos or not. If not, then I'll set the next session up for CI/CD implementation as well. But for now, let's walk through some of the examples and just look at the talks environment and see how we can execute using a single line command, right? So let me share my screen. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yep.
Yes, Sumit.
Okay. So let me quickly first go back and ask if at this point in regarding the previous sessions, if you guys have any questions, any blockers that you guys are facing in terms of execution and setting up the environment. If not, then let's move to the talks, right? So what we did last time, so the first thing that we did was we created some of the tests in Selenium-based, right? So if I go to test suite, these were the tests that we created. We marked them with certain markers and we executed them, right? Now, and in the next session, we basically converted uh, some of the Catalan scripts into Selenium-based scripts. So these were the Catalan scripts, and then they got converted into a simple Selenium-based implementation, right? And then we talked about uh, the functionalities of Selenium-based and what it can do in terms of features, right? And today we'll talk about talks, right? So previously we were executing based on PyTest, right? But what we are going to do now is we are going to create a talks.ini file. So what it will do is it's a virtual environment wrapper, a plugin for PyTest. So what it will help us achieve is that we don't have to remember all the commands that we are going to put in terms.
Has for more value pairs here. The rate for
Okay.
$1 billion, euros, and
I'm getting some disturbance. Kadir, can you help mute?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, awesome. So so what it will help us achieve is that I can create multiple environments. So currently, let's say I'm created an SB environment. If I do the same, I can create an environment called SB_dev. So when I execute the test, let's see right? When I execute the test from a single line command, I don't have to remember anything that is mentioned here. So I can mention here Chrome, and then I can give my environment name SBDev running on Chrome, right? So I can create multiple environments like this. And I don't have to change anything from the command. I can change this anytime that I want. I can change the concurrent sessions as well. But when I'm doing the execution, that change is reflected in this environment. So if it is already integrated with your CID CD pipelines, you basically don't have to change anything, right? Otherwise, if you just give this command, then you have to go to individual plans and modify your Jenkins or Bamboo plan, right? This way, we make sure that the changes that we are making here is not, we don't have to change it in the CI/CD tool environment. And also, we don't have to install any dependencies in that particular environment. So all these dependencies, so what it will do is, so when I read from the top, environment list, it's running on Python 3. Base Python is Python 3. Uh, Always copy means if these libraries already exist in your environment, uh, it will not install it again, right? If it is true, then even if it is available, it will still install on top of it, right? And all these libraries, I don't have to install manually, right? So this makes uh, my test framework portable, right? So I can plug it in any machine, any tool, and it will still run the same way it runs on my machine. Another reason for portability is that we are running on a grid and we are not running on our local browsers. So if I go to this IP, I should be able to view this, right? So this is the same IP, and then I have this grid available for me, right? This way, I have the real portability that I can run it on any server, any machine, or any tool, right? All right.
Sumit, sorry, there's a request to increase the font.
Oh, okay, sure. It should already be on font. Let me do 20. Is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So this is the talks.inf file. So when I execute now, so what I will do is I will so let me go to speed training, open a new terminal here, and then I run the command talks e. Let's see what I'm trying to run. So uh, I'm trying to run this environment SB, right? So I'm going to give the command as SB. So talks is what command I will type, and the argument that I'm going to pass is environment, and what environment going to execute is SB. So if I do this, it should start the execution. So it found two tests. Now let's look at the grid. Mm, Somehow the grid is not working. So it should show failure, that connection pool. Uh, this browser is not available. Uh, let me go to Azure and see. Oh, portal. Mm, it's showing me running. Oh, it might be the case that so I'm going to check if the grid is running or not. So it's telling me run. So let me stop and retry it. permission. Sudo. Okay. Should be running now. Let's check. Yeah. So let's wait for the instances containers to spin up. Yep. So let's rerun them again. Okay. So now if I go here, it should open two browsers for me. Yep. And then I can, because I've given the consecutive command as two, so it's running into threads. So it will run these tests. So one is finished. Second is about to finish. Yep. So I should see two pass in 32.6 seconds, right? So this way, I don't need to provide the whole, remember the whole command, and I don't need to know the details of what's included in the command section. Otherwise, if I have the same uh, I have multiple tests to run. Uh, so let's say there are hundreds of files here, and then I would be really hard pressed to figure out what test I'm going to run. I have to go through individual files, look at the markers, or keep a log of those markers somewhere, right? Because I don't know what markers what is associated with. So I have to create a documentation file where I note down everything that I'm doing. This does do away with all of those. So it basically tells me a detail on either I'm running this test case on dev environment and on Chrome browser, right? I don't need to know the internal details of anything that I'm doing, right? So that way it really helps me uh, create an execution platform, which is really simple to uh, put, as well as not just in your local, but from the portability perspective, it's going to help me in running it on any server because I'm not installing any of these libraries manually. It is done by a word. So what Docs does is it creates a virtual environment, and in that virtual environment, it install all these dependencies. So if I go to this folder, what it creates is a Tox environment, and then this is the virtual environment it created, which is SB, and these are all the libraries, scripts. So this basically install a new virtual environment of Python 3. It installs that first and then install those libraries inside that. So that way I can run it on any server or any tool, CI/CD tool pipelines. Any questions on this? No, sounds good. So let's move on to by looking at the framework and how to read the code from GitHub, right? How to navigate any open source project, not just Selenium base, but how do you basically navigate through any GitHub project and basically get some of the examples from there. Uh, to ramp up quickly, right? Some of the features you don't need to start from the beginning. A lot of time, uh, any open source project provides all the implementation of their features or the functionality that it can do, and then also it does provide a little bit of guidance on how can you write a framework on this, right? So we'll navigate through this code repository. So it's called SeleniumBase, and then when we open this, the first thing that we need to do is clone this repository. So if we go to this code section, and copy this. And then we can do a simple git command called git clone and paste this link, and it will install this whole library in your repository. So if I go to my Git, so this is what it will download. So this is the Selenium base. It's the same as what we see here. So all these files, I get it on my local. So the first step to navigate to any open code repository is that you need that code base on your local computer as well, because you need to set it up. You need to navigate through the code. It it's much more easier when you do it in an IDE. You can still do it in the UI, but then you can't execute anything from the UI, right? And if you have to reference back to uh, any of the implementation or reference of a particular function or a method, it becomes really hard and tricky. Though GitHub provides that kind of feature, but then it's not a simple navigation as you can do it in IDE, right? So if I go to IDE, so the idea is as soon as I go in IDE, let's see, I want to see the implementation of self.open. Uh, is this font clear enough? So let me configure. So if you look here, uh, uh, if I need to go to this self.open implementation, right? I don't know what the implementation is. So I can just do a control B and it will take me to that implementation, right? Pretty much straightforward in case if you want to see what that open function is actually doing. And you have the flexibility to basically change this function as well according to your requirement. So, so the file name is base case, which is the base case class implementation, which is this. So we need to always, whenever we write any test, we always import this so that we get all these functions available to us, right? So there are multiple implementations. There is slow click. So even if you want to change anything, you can still do it, though uh, it's already almost implemented at a level where you don't need to change anything, but then there might be a requirement where you need to actually change or put more logging into it, right? So you can do that. So if I want to see the type function, then I can directly navigate here. It will have some comments on what this function is doing, and then the arguments that you need to do and the parameters that you can pass. So you can pass a selector, you can pass text, you can pass by, timeout, retry. So all these you can do, and you can look at this function in detail. You can read out that if you are going to update text, you can either do by selector, text, by, timeout, and how many, what is the timeout and what is the retry, how many times you're going to retry. All these are not mandatory parameters. Some of them are optional. So that ways you will uh, don't some of them have default timeout. So when the if you haven't set any timeout, the timeout will default to settings.large timeout. So if I want to see what is the large timeout, I can do a control B here and it will show me a large timeout is 10 seconds, right? So this way you can navigate through the code and look at some of the implementation. And if you want to change something, you can do that. Now let's look at the UI. It's the same thing, but it's very hard to navigate to all these implementations. And then let's look at the code repository. So there is a Docker file implementation. So Docker file, what it does is it gives you a Docker file so that you can have Selenium base uh, set up as an image in a Docker container, and then you can execute your tests inside the Docker container. All you need to do is Docker compose this file, and then you should be able to get an environment ready for you. If you're interested in this, so can I can show a use case on this when we do the next session on CI/CD pipeline. So I will ask, so I'll keep putting the items that are there for CI/CD pipeline, and I'll take a feedback at the end to know what you guys are interested in. I might not have time to do everything, but whatever we think is uh, appropriate at this time, we'll do in the next session, right? So Docker is one that we can do next time. We can set up Selenium base in a Docker container, or we can create a Jenkins server again and run talks through in that CI/CD pipeline. Right now, let's look at some of the framework sections. So let's go to examples. So there,
Uh,
let's, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, sorry to interrupt. This is Kutal. I have a
Mhm.
question here. So, how many nodes we can create in the Docker? For example, if we have so many test cases, so I believe that one is not enough, right? For example, test fail and
Right,
things
right.
happen. So,
So this is how I use Docker containers, right? So one container means one execution.
hmm,
So if you want to create multiple concurrent sessions or multiple
hmm,
browsers, let's say you want to run 60 browsers together, right?
hmm, hmm,
So either you can set up a Selenium grid for that, like I showed here. So if you look at this section, these are this is one Docker container, right?
hmm,
And
yeah,
this one Docker container has one Chrome and one Firefox,
yeah,
right? This is the second Docker container. So I can
yeah,
spin up I can spin up 60 Docker containers, and then I can execute on that parallelly by providing the value of 60 here,
like
right?
node value kind of, right?
Correct. So it's the concurrent execution value. So if I give 60 value here, what it means is it's gonna, if you have 60 test case,
Hmm,
it's gonna spin up 60 instances and they run them together. But it's contingent on if those 60 nodes are available to you, right?
hmm,
So the 60 nodes that are going to be available is through the grid. So you will spin up not two, but 60 uh, containers here. It's
hmm,
not hard. It's just so if I go here, uh, eh, I don't know if you attended the last session, but I showed there that how do you spin up. So by default there are two, but you can set the
hmm.
value in the config as 60, and the 60
I see.
containers will, right?
Okay, okay, got it.
Or we don't even need to do that. So these Selenium grid is auto
Yeah.
scalable. So if you give 60 commands, it will spin up
Hmm,
60 containers itself and then
hmm.
destroy 58 and keep the two by default once the test execution is complete,
Oh, I see.
right?
So it will
Now,
pick up
yeah,
according to the requirement, right? Yes,
correct, correct,
yes.
correct.
And
So we can,
another thing is you
mhm,
see that there is one ID just below the web driver,
uh,
84.0.4147. Yeah,
yeah. So this
this.
is the Chrome version and this is 79 is the Firefox version.
Oh, I see. Is there any way that we can print our test case name somewhere here so we can see that, okay, which test is running on which node?
Right. So if I go to dashboard, this will give me a detailed view of what test was run on what version.
Mhm.
And if you go to the browser driver log, mm, yeah, you will not be able to get that details from this. The only thing that you can see is what instance. So it tags using your session ID is what
Mm,
it gets tagged to, which is this. It
mhm,
doesn't go with the name because uh, uh, when you send the request, so if you look at this, right? So this is how the request is being sent. And so there comes a session request, which
mhm,
means that this is the browser, this is the Firefox profile that we are going to use, adding session request. So when the request is being sent uh, by Selenium base or any Selenium uh, request, it comes as a session. It doesn't come as a test case name. because
Mm,
the grid doesn't the grid really doesn't want to see what is the test case name, because this is not where we get all our logs from, right?
mhm. Yeah.
But
Yeah. The only concern here is, for example, we have 500 test cases, and if we want to see
correct,
the recording for,
I agree.
let's say, 300 one, right? So
So what you
it's hard
can
to
do is,
find out there.
no, so this is how you will do, right? So when
Mm,
you send a request, you capture the session ID.
yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
the session ID. You capture that session ID, and when you are executing the test, you print that session ID in your report along with the test case name,
I see.
right? So
Okay,
by
got it.
yeah, so working with the session ID, when you search through the session ID, there is a search functionality here. So if you want to search the session ID,
Yeah. Yeah.
it will give you that particular video. So
Okay. Perfect.
the thing that you need to do is uh, log that session ID somewhere in your report,
Mhm.
so
Okay.
that you exactly know that this is how you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. So the only catch is the session ID, which is unique. So we
Correct.
can.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. So let's move to Selenium base again. So let's go through some of the examples. So there are multiple examples here. Some how do you uh, so some of the boilerplate codes are there, capabilities, example logs, offline examples, tour examples, visual testing examples, and then multiple examples here, right? So my first test, IP cow test, image test, handle alert, GUI test runner, GitHub test, example config. So we'll run a couple of test cases and see how it works. But let's start from the top with the boilerplate, and let's see what boilerplate has, right? So how do you navigate this, right? If you want to look at what basically these things are doing, right? And how to read a particular repository. So if I go to boilerplate test, what it says is from base. So this is the import statement. It's importing the base test case, and then it's importing page. So this is very important, right? So it's importing from page objects, the class page, right? So page object is the file name, and it's importing the class name, right? So if I go back here, I should be able to see uh, uh, page objects. So here it's page objects. So if you look here, class page object. So this is OK. So this is basically an object of a particular page. So OK button has, so hash OK means has an ID of OK. Cancel button has an ID of cancel, and then C button items has a button. This is the CSS selector, which means button dot items is a CSS selector. Button is the tag, right? And then you have a home page. You have your objects. So basically, this is the object repository of your multiple pages that you want to add, right? And the checkout page has remove from cart buttons dot remove. Dot remove means so button tag dot remove means a class called remove, right? And then hash by now means it has an ID called by dash now, right? Uh, and then and this is the implementation, right? So you're doing a login, and then you're clicking on homepage.see items button, and then you're clicking on shopping page buy buyable item, and then you're clicking on shopping page.add to cart. What it does is it makes your test really simple to read, and you exactly know on what page you're doing what, right? If I just provide the ID of button.remove, you will not know in which page. I might have that remove button in multiple pages, right? I will not know what page I'm talking about, right? What page this test is running on. So those kind of things, you can add this in your framework. So this is called page object model in UI, where you create your, they have only implemented the object, but you can add method as well. So you can have a checkout page and all the method associated in the checkout page, you can do that. So this click can go here, where it will know that there's a method that we can use, which is a click, which is buy now, right? So you can, rather than writing this whole line, you can just click checkout.buy now as a method, right? So this is one of the framework element. Uh, the idea is that page object pattern, they're using CSS selectors and help make your code more readable, maintainable, and reusable. So you can reuse it anywhere that you want. So let's say if multiple developers are working on a single application and they have to, let's say one person is working on shopping page and one person is working on checkout page, but the checkout page guy has to navigate through the home page as well as the shopping page to work on checkout page. So, but he doesn't have to create all those uh, all those methods and all those objects because it's already there, and because somebody else is working on the shopping page and they have created those objects and methods. So he can continue working only on the checkout page. So it's really a reusable factor when it comes to enterprise frameworks. Okay. Some of the examples that we have here is, let's say, what they've given is Google test. Let's see what Google test contains. So it's importing the base case. So base case is the fundamental driver class. You have to have this in every test that you run. And then from Google objects, it's importing homepage and results page. Let's see what's Google objects. This is the Google objects. Let me increase the screen size. Is it better now? Okay, so the Google Page Objects has a dialog box, and then uh, this is the ID of that, and then list box, search button, feeling lucky button. So if I go to google.com and do F12, and try to do an element search. So let me pick something from here. So let's say dialog box. I'm not sure if this will be there. No, I cannot find it. Let's go to input search. Yeah, so it highlighted this, which means this is the one that is the search box. So I created a homepage where I added whatever elements are there on this page, right? And once I navigate to the results page, so if I navigate, let's say I'm entering some value, uh, Google search, and then this is the results page. So I created another uh, page object model for the results page where, let's say, image alt. Let me search this image alt here if this is visible. OK, so this is here. So image alt is this. So I should be able to see this image if I have a research page. So I can put a validation on this, right? Because if it's not there, that means I haven't gone to the results page. If it is there, that means I am my uh, my result page is visible, right? So that's one kind of validation. And I can put multiple validations here, right? So this is one of the other examples. Now, what do you do with these examples? The main object is that you basically look through the code and what they're doing and how they're doing it, right? So this is a page object model again, and this is the google.com testing example, which says open this page, self-type homepage search GitHub, and then list box, search button, feeling lucky button, click on search button, and then results page, you assert text, and then you assert an element images link, right? Now, how to run these tests, right? I know that we have uh, gone through the code, but how do you execute these tests? So execution is pretty simple. So let's execute some of the examples here. Let's say, mm, let's test error page.py, right? So let's do this. So I go to my repository. I open uh, I open this. I open this. I went inside my repository, which is SeleniumBase, and then I go to examples, and I see what's inside that, right? So these are the tests available for me that I can execute and see how they execute. So let's execute one of the tests. Let's execute this. So let's try to execute this. So it showed that there is one item that was collected, and it will execute the error page. Let's see the execution. So 500 page, it's validating all these items, and then it's making it pass, right? So let's go to this example in the UI, right? I can go in the code from the code as well, but uh, I just wanted to show how you navigate through the UI as well, right? So we did error, right? Error page. Now let's see what it's doing, right? So what it is doing is opening seleniumbase.io.error page. It's highlighting 500 error. It's highlighting the image that is there, the text, uh, alt 404, and it's highlighting all these things, right? So this is how uh, you basically execute using the repository. You don't have to create a.
Sumit,
Go ahead.
uh, yeah. So if you go back to the code again,
Hmm.
so here we are highlighting the things, right? We are
Right.
not actually asserting it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. That's true. So this basically is only the highlight. If so, assume I'm not sure if we call this as validation, because if this object is not available, right, it's gonna fail, right?
But like image is not correct, but the name of the image is same, then still it's gonna be passed.
Correct, correct. So the validations are mainly dependent on your use case,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Uh, what kind of validations you want to put is up to you. Uh, uh, there can be on one object there can be hundreds of validations that we can put, right? Now
yeah,
we don't want to put a lot of validations because it will make our code really lengthy, right? So one way is that we put the minimum validations that we know where the things will fail, right?
right.
uh, During the functional flow, all these are UI elements, these are not functional flow elements, right? Now
Yeah.
for me, the main validation will be that if I go in this on this link, let's see what
Hmm.
validations we can put, right?
Hmm.
So for me, my main idea will be that I should be able to see a 404 error,
404.
that
Yeah,
this is not the web page you're looking for, right?
yeah,
This is what I'm
yeah,
looking for. I wouldn't be bothered if even if it is there is no oops or there is no 500. If
yeah.
only
Exactly,
this is there, I'm still happy with it,
exactly. Yeah.
right? So it's up to you how many validations you want to put, right? And you, someone from the UI testing who is uh, completely involved in the from the UX perspective, right?
Hmm.
Uh, that person will say, No, I want this shadow as well, right? I want this boat as well. I want this cat to be there as well, right? So
Yeah.
all those things are there, and then we basically don't use the functional flow validations, we use visual validations. So I'll show what visual validation is, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
how we can achieve it with Selenium base.
Exactly. That's what I wanted to learn.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
There are multiple tools available for this as well. So Apply Tools is one of the tools. A very good tool. Uh, if you really want to focus on just on the UX aspect of your application, it does
Hmm.
away with any kind of validation that you need to do, because what it does is it does pixel by pixel comparison. And then if even one pixel goes here and there, it will fail, right?
I see.
Uh,
Yeah.
and it's on cloud. If again, I'll keep this option open as well for the next session. So there
Hmm.
are three options available. One, we can go through the same Jenkins setup with
Hmm.
Selenium Base or talks. We did it in Tavern. You can go through that, or else we can do it again, either in Azure or we did it in Azure before, but we can do it in AWS this time, right?
Oh,
So
sure.
one
Yeah.
option is that. The second option is that we go through the apply tool setup, right?
Hmm.
One option is
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
And,
I really wanted to go with the Jenkins one, but let's
okay.
see what everyone says.
Yep, yep. And the third option is that, uh, what was the third option? Okay, I'll talk about it once I.
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Yeah, no worries.
uh Okay.
Okay.
All right. So once we run this, this is what it is. It did. Now let's see if there are some assertions as well, right? Let's see if this has something. So it has some asserts, right? It has assert true, assert text, and assert element, right? So let's run this one. So the file is test hacksearch.py. So let's run this. So it collected one item. So it went to google.com, searched for Selenium GitHub. It went to the GitHub repository and did a couple of asserts and it passed, right? Now let's see what it did. So it opened to Google and it put in the search as Selenium-Based GitHub. And then it went on the asserting of this particular element where href is Selenium base, and then get the current URL. It went to the title examples and then assert text on it, right?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I feel this is the perfect test case.
Right. So
Yeah.
what? So my idea or thought process behind showing you this repository is that even if you are feeling that it's a big thing to start from scratch, you can use
Mm-hmm.
open code repositories to get ramped up quickly,
Mm.
right? It
Yeah.
does have a lot of good examples. Not so this is not just for this code repository, but any open source repository. You can
Mm.
follow the same method and start seeing that what are the things that you can actually uh, start with, right? In terms of configurations, different configurations, different. Let's see this test Apple site, right? This is
Mm.
a let's run this. Let's see what this one does.
Yeah, and in meanwhile, one more question. So can we import this Git repo in any dev tool, or we just need the particular tool for that?
What do you mean?
Like, for example, Eclipse or IntelliJ or any dev tool to access the project.
So to access the project, all you need to do is get all these files in your local repository, right? Now,
Okay, yeah.
the best way to do is do a Git clone, right?
No, that is good. But for example, if I want to write any test case by my own, so like which dev tool I can use?
So,
Uh, the one you are using is I don't know which one is it.
you're talking about IDE, right?
ID, yeah.
Yeah. So you can use whatever is you're comfortable with. You can use Eclipse, you can use PyCharm, you can use Visual Studio Code. All
It
three are
supports
free.
multiple, right?
Right. But this one
Okay.
is PyCharm because it's specifically built for Python. So
Hmm.
I'd use different IDEs for different uh, purposes. So for Java, I use IntelliJ.
Hmm.
For Python, I use PyCharm. Uh, for uh, for JavaScript and any JavaScript framework, I use Visual Studio Code. Right. It's
Okay.
all about what you're comfortable with. But
Okay.
all these three support mostly everything.
Okay. Thank you.
So let's run this test Apple site. Let's see what it's doing. So it's going to the developer.apple.com, searching. So it's asserting and it's showcasing what it's asserting as well. And then it's scrolling through the page. to make sure that all the elements are there. Cool, right? Now let's look at the code. This time, let's look at the code in the repository. Test Apple site. Yep. So what it does is the demo, what it did it was it set the demo mode true. So whatever you will do, you will write the code. It will highlight every action that you are doing, and it will put it on the screen what assertions you are doing and highlight what actions you are doing, right? And for each step, it will wait for 0.5 seconds. So even if you don't, if you read through the whole Selenium library guide, you will still find it hard to find these methods and how they are used. So the best way to go about is to download the repository, go through the code, and execute them. And once they're executed, you can actually see what they're doing, and you can implement the same based on how you define or design your framework, right? And then it is typing something and then highlighting and it's scrolling down uh, by asserting text. So it does an auto scroll. It goes to this particular element and it try to find this text, right? So you can directly assert a text in any H3 element. Okay. So lastly, let's do something that. So there are multiple things that you will find that are really important, like uploading file. So how do you upload a file and how do you block an ad in a browser? And then how do you switch to a frame? And then you can do this as upload file, right? And then this is the directory absolute path that you're giving, what file you're going to upload, right? So it gives a ready-made examples for you so that your creation of test time reduces a lot, right? XPath test. How do you do XPath, right? So uh, this is the relative path. It's finding an image and all that stuff, right? Uh, Another one is, let's run this get PDF text. So what it does is it downloads a PDF, which is this, and then it asserts from that PDF page one, uh, you are getting all, it reads all the text and then it prints all the text. So let's run this one, right?
Oh, so is it validating the PDF
Yes.
file?
So
Oh,
so you
nice.
so once you have the PDF text, you can validate it whatever you want to insert to, right?
Oh, nice.
So let's run this PDF test.
Yeah, because what I was thinking, PDF, once you download, then it becomes a desktop application, right?
No, it's reading as well,
Oh,
and
nice. Yeah,
it's
let's see.
reading and then printing it on your console. So you should be able to see some text on the console, which is
Ah,
page one of the PDF. So
oh, I
it downloaded the PDF file and then it's reading that PDF file. It won't show anything on the browser because it's a downloaded file,
see.
but you should be able to see text on the console.
I see.
So it takes a bit of a time to read PDF.
Yeah, it's actually good because mostly for the Selenium, the main challenge we face is that we cannot validate kind of the
Right,
documents.
right.
Right.
Sami, excuse me, please. It's Louis.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
Louis.
yeah, I was wondering where is he gonna access all the file from? Do we have it anywhere?
What do you mean?
Like the file now you're going to upload or download PDF. Where is it gonna come? Is there on this framework on this Selenium base? Do we have a folder for files where it's
So
gonna read it from?
so it's gonna download in a temporary file, and then it's gonna read it from there. But you can definitely specify location if you want something to be downloaded from there.
Okay. And please, if you may, I would like a little bit of more explanation on the base class for this this framework. I needed you to like explain more on the base
Sure,
class.
sure. I'll do that. So if you look here, you have the text, which is test get PDF dot text, and then this is the PDF file content. So this is it starts from here, manipulating images, and then this is all page one of your PDF. Right now, there is some limitation to it in terms of if your PDF contains only images and the text is embedded inside images, it might not be able to read that. Or if it is, if it reads, then it might not be a perfect OCR, right? So it does implement OCR. Uh, it might be able to implement OCR pattern, but then there is no guarantee that it's going to read perfectly, right? There might be jumbled up stuff there. So there is some limitation to the PDF in terms of uh, if your PDF text is an image, it will be hard to do.
Sumit, Vaishali here. So it reads more than one page also, or it reads
Yeah,
only
yeah,
one
yeah,
page?
yeah. So
Okay.
you can loop through multiple pages, right? So I'm giving a page one here. I can give multiple pages here, or I can loop through uh, pages. How many pages are there? I can read how many pages are there, and then I can loop through dynamically, and then I loop through all those pages.
Okay. And we can copy this to a text file or something.
Right. That's correct. So I'm outputting it to console, but you can definitely create another file and put all that content there.
Okay. Thank you.
And this is the visual testing part. It does have an out of the box visual testing capability, uh, which you can utilize, but you need some kind of image repository in order to do that, because you need to save those images, baseline images somewhere, right? In order to compare it in the next run. Uh, so there is some infrastructure requirement in order to do that. So I'll walk through this. So what it does is uh, uh, it does four levels of validations, visual validations. The first one is level 0, which is a dry run. So it performs a comparison to the baseline and print out any differences that are found, but won't fail the test even if the difference exists. Right, so it won't fail any test. It will just validate the two images. Level 1 is where it's it compares the HTML tags to HTML tags, so previous HTML tags and the latest HTML tags. So it does capture the whole DOM element, and then it does the HTML tag comparison, and it fails if that's the case. Level 2 is where you have HTML tags and attribute names as compared to tag level 2, right? Which is you have tags and attribute names. Level 3 is you have tags, attribute names, and values as well, right? So you can have multiple baselines set up there, and then you can check the window and define that. So for this, it has this is the test that you can run and see level 0, level 1, level 2, level 3, right? So you can validate any of those levels. Uh, the layout test, right? What it does is it basically you have a baseline uh, where you're basically doing a comparison to whatever you have stored before, right? So that ways you can do the layout validations. Again, it's not a complete visual validation test, uh, but again, you can have some kind of layout failures and the DOM failures uh, get that captured itself, right? So if let's say on the error page, if this 500 uh, image is not there, then that image tag will not be there. So if your baseline had that HTML tag of image and this image is not there anymore, it will fail. And then you can have, that's the first level. The second level is you can have a tag with your attribute, right? So attribute is that it contains a class something, or it create contains XY coordinate something, right? And then the value is that it has a text of 500. And you can compare at three levels of DOM. That first level is the images available, the 500 images available. The second, let me inspect this and it will be more clearer. So So if you look at image, this image should be, this tag should be there. So my baseline has this whole DOM element, right? But then image, this image tag, if this is missing, this is the first level failure. So if I'm doing level 1 comparison, I'm only checking if this image exists. My second level is that it has a data X range of 20 and Y range of 40. So I have some coordinates that I need set it up. So I can say that if data X range is, this is a second level, which is attribute. So if this is not there, any of these two are not there with this value, then it should fail. My third is the value, right, which is 20 and 40. So if my value of data X range is not 20, then it will fail if Y range is not 40. So level 2 is my data X range exists, uh, and data 3 and level 3 is the value 20 exists. Clear?
Yeah, I have one question here. So how do we get the baseline image?
So the baseline is basically you capture, if you set the baseline as true, so the first test that you run, it will capture that baseline, right? And the second
And that
test,
it
and
will use that image as a reference for rest of the
correct,
execution for the
correct,
same test case.
correct, correct.
Or then if, for example, first test case is not loading the proper image or proper page because of the internet issue or server is
Mhm.
down or something happened, and that it's gonna capture that. So it means for rest of the test cases it's gonna fail, right?
That's correct.
How can we fix
So
that?
the first test that you do that when the baseline is captured, you need to validate it once to make sure that your baseline is correct, right?
I
And
see. It,
if you don't, even if you don't do that, the second test that you run, so what I would recommend is you run, for creating a baseline, you run the same test at least 5 times,
I see. Okay.
right? So that you
Hmm.
will be doubly sure that your baseline is correct. Because
Mhm.
if, let's say,
Yeah.
the first time it didn't load, the second time will cause it to be fail, right? And then you will be sure that in the 5 runs at least, my baseline is correct, right? And if not, then you can put the demo mode on, right? And then create a baseline. Then you will be able to visually see what pages uh, are getting, what things are getting highlighted in order to create baselines, right? Uh, but in the sense of navigation, right? But when you capture the whole DOM structure, uh, even if the things that are not loaded, if you run it 5 times, there is a high probability that it will get captured, and low probability of having the baseline wrong after 5 runs.
Yeah, makes sense. And these images are going to be saved in one folder, right?
Right, right.
Yeah, so I was thinking, like, for example, if we can take a screenshot, or for example, if we get the right image somehow and we store manually and then we execute the test case without
You
capturing first image as a baseline.
you can do that. You can do that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but the only challenge with that is that the when you do it manually, right? The screen size that you actually capture them at. So let's assume uh, you're you're running on a different machine with a different pixels versions, and then so basically this is not capturing the whole pixelated thing, right? It's capturing the DOM version of your page, right? So if anything changes, it changes there. It doesn't capture the image as such image, right? It captures the properties of that image. It captures the tag of those images, right? The whole DOM element. So that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
it's not a perfect visual testing tool, as I said. It has some restrictions, but from a functional standpoint, it works very well. But then, if you're going specifically on the UX side, it has to be a more robust tool like Apply2Lies.
Oh yeah. Okay. Sure. Sure. Okay. No, but it's really good. Like if we can capture images and then we can compare, that will be like faster execution,
Correct,
right?
correct.
Yeah.
So this
Nice.
does allow you for a lot faster execution.
Yeah.
Apply2Lies will cause you some bumps in the test
Oh.
because you capture an image dynamically and then you send it to the cloud, right? And then the cloud in the cloud, Apply2 will do comparison, right? And it will send you the results.
Oh, nice. Yeah. This
So
ability seems like interesting one. We'll definitely go for
right.
that.
But it does cause you, so for each validation, it does cause you a 2 or 3 seconds delay.
I see. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So I guess we are over time. So let's get a feedback on what should be our next session. Uh,
So Sumit, looks like you may have to take 2 more sessions. You were thinking of skipping one session, right?
oh, okay. Yeah. No, but last session is I want to keep it as a project for Q&A or any blockers that we face, right? So I
Okay.
want to keep it at that. So uh, if we are not covering Apply2s now, we can cover it in our robot framework classes as well.
Yeah,
That's
that sounds good. Yeah, yeah. But let's make sure that even for the next week, you're going to continue with one of these 3 options, right?
right,
And then
right, right, right.
after
So
week
what?
after, you can engage them for Q&As and stuff
Yeah,
like that. So that will end this session. Then we can start with our robot framework week.
right.
After
So
that.
what
Yeah.
I will request everyone is to send your feedback in the Teams channel itself, and I'll take a look and I'll see where the majority lies, and we'll conduct that session.
Awesome. So only thing that I see right now is our team. Joy. Okay, Joy. Jay, Josina, Joy, Ethel, Layak, Nimi, Thomas. Hopefully, you are all having the Teams account, right? So to collaborate. If not, please make sure that you send it in this chat, your email addresses, or our guys will add you into the Teams account. It's like a Slack. You can communicate before and after event. Sumit has always been very active helping people to get up to the pace, right? Okay, good. So, Sumit, your recommendation is for the people to give their inputs. You said one of three things. One thing I remember Jenkins, and the second thing you mentioned Appy tools. What's the third thing?
I'm still thinking. I completely forgot.
I know you said something.
I will add it in the Teams chat.
Yeah. Okay. So let's collaborate in the Teams channel to understand the majority
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
what we
yeah.
are
It
asking.
was Docker. It was Docker. Thanks, Nadia. It was Docker.
Doctor, is it? Oh, okay. See, Nadia was listening. That's good. Perfect. So yeah, let's collaborate over the team and come back together next week Wednesday and continue learning. Guys, like I was telling you last week, right? Please, invite your friends and colleagues to come and get benefit, and also talk to your employers and managers to see if they can support our community to grow, right? From the point of view of in-kind sponsorship or whatever, I would really appreciate. And if you want to reach out to your managers, you want some help, please send me an email, testoper@testoper.com. I would be very happy to support you with this help. We really need your help to continue doing this good work for longer time, right? So with that, let's close the call. And you all have a great week ahead and good weekend. I'll see you some of your guys on Saturday session. If not, I'll see you guys on next Wednesday session. Take care. You all have a great day. Bye bye. Sumit.
All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
And please provide your feedback on the Teams chat for the next session.
All right. Take care. Bye bye.
Thank you.